All right, and I am joined now by Devin McCourty. And so, Devin, um, a lot going on with the 49ers. What do you make of this team right now, 6 weeks into the season, heading into the Sunday night football game against the Falcons?
Yeah, I think one of the things you got to mention, they're resilient. This isn't a team, despite all the injuries. We're not over here talking about like a rebuild or the season's over. Like everything is still right in front of them. I think the hardest thing with this week is you're getting over the loss of like the guy, the main guy on your team that I think everyone rallies behind. Obviously Fred Warner's not always talked about when you add in the offense and you have guys like Christian McCaffrey and Brock Purdy and George Kittle, like the offense and how the NFL is wired, we end up talking about that more. But I think as you read the articles and you see the reaction of so many of the guys in the locker room, like, from us watching, you can tell in the game last week, the touchdowns that were then scored by Tampa was an obvious thing. But I think the reaction from the players let you know just the impact that this one injury is going to have compared to all the other ones.
You mentioned, the season's not over. They are 4-2. They're 3-0 within the division. But when you don't have your best pass rusher in Nick Bosa, and really there's a huge drop off after that, you can't, constantly get that pressure on the quarterback. And when you don't have, your team leader like Fred Warner, does it change a little bit just how you view the rest of the season as far as, with the trade deadline coming up and just overall looking at how you build out the rest of the year?
Yeah, I think from the outside looking in, definitely. I think for us, when you look, and I think especially in this division, when you look at the rest of the division, you look at the Rams and the Seahawks in particular, you're like, man, like I know we've won these games, but like these are going to be hard matchups playing against these teams later in the season if we can't stay on pace. I think the key though is how do the next few weeks go? Like, does Lenore step up as a leader on a team? I know he's talked about having different goals like all pro and Pro Bowl, but his main goal has been to be a leader on this team. Well, there's no better time than now. And then all the other guys, Bethune and the different guys that are stepping up, how can you now change the identity of your team? I think back in 2014 in New England, we lost Gerard Mayo, our middle linebacker. And that, like, he was just like Fred, he was our signal caller. He got everybody else aligned. We needed two young guys. We needed Dante Hightower and Jamie Collins to step up. But what ended up happening is we turned into a team that blitz more. We just blitz those young linebackers and let them cause havoc in the middle. So I'm interested to see what does Robert Saleh think of the guys he now has and how to best use them, which might be different than what we're accustomed seeing from the 49ers defense.
So you mentioned Diamonor Lenore, and this is obviously a position you know a lot about. Really good player. The takeaways haven't been there. And right now the 49ers are on this unbelievable streak, the worst in NFL history as far as going 13 consecutive games without an interception. How is that possible? Like this defensive backfield isn't that bad. It's not I think it's a pretty decent defensive backfield. So can you help me explain to me how that can happen?
Yeah, I think, one of the keys with interceptions, we always talk about in the secondary, it's tips and overthrows are usually where you get a lot of your interceptions. And where do tips and overthrows usually come from? It comes from the pass rush. And I think for this team, it's the balance. Like I think all the time when I hear people talk about football, it's you need a great pass rusher, you need a great coverage. And I've always thought you just need both to blend together. If we have pass rush that's getting home and they're getting there fast, we need to be on our guys. We need to be on tight. If our pass rush is taking a little bit more time, our coverage needs to be later getting attached to guys in the down, not maybe right away all in people's face and giving them easy throws and having to cover for a long time. So I think when I watch them, it's been the blend of it. It hasn't married up well, over these last not few games, like 13 games, as you just said. It just hasn't been what you would want. Obviously the 49, they're not a huge blitzing team, so you don't get some of those things. Like I think about when I played, there were times where we were calling defenses where we knew the ball would have to come out fast and we knew kind of we could be a little bit more aggressive. I think that's the harder thing. I think especially the way that this team is built, a lot of their pass rush was really kind of relying on one guy and Bosa. And when you're that way, teams do different things to take that away or make it harder. So I think all of that kind of goes together for them of why they're not creating turnovers as far as interceptions. And then when you go back and watch the film, when you're in that secondary, we can't drop interceptions. When the ball's in the air, we have to have a different mentality about going after and attacking it.
Man, I just look at the first game without Fred Warner. I'm not sure it gets any more difficult, for Tatum Bethune, for D Winters, going up against the Falcons and Bijan Robinson and just the kind of year he's having and the incredible game he's coming off of. So what is this game going to tell you about those young linebackers going up against, arguably the most dynamic player in the NFL right now?
Yeah, it's tough too, because I think about, 3 weeks ago, you look at this Atlanta team, they go out there and they lose to Carolina 30-0. And Zach Robinson, offensive coordinator, comes down to the field. And since then, the offense, it looks like it makes more sense. And I think that's going to be the hardest thing for these young linebackers. Yes, Bijan Robinson, all these guys are threats and are really hard to stop. But the things that you now add to your plate for Winters, Fred Warner controlled the huddle. He got the calls. He got everybody lined up. Now, all of a sudden, you go from being a guy that stands next to Fred Warner and gets to play totally kind of free. He's probably giving you alerts. He's telling you Bijan's wide, move out. He's telling you all these things that he studied from the film. You were kind of the benefactor. You got to get that information. Now you're in charge of that. And now you're in charge of doing something totally different. The pressure, I've worn that green dot of when the call's coming in a lot of times, and I don't know how Salah is, but I've had coordinators that they're also trying to give you all of the little notes going into the play. Tell this guy this, tell this, and then 15 seconds, it shuts off, and you're like, I didn't hear that last thing. And you got to just forget about it and know what you're doing and know you've studied and just use what you have. And I think that's going to be the hardest part. The challenge every week is going to be playing against talented guys, but it's how it changes for you and your system. And I think that's going to be a big thing of, can the 49ers run some of the calls they used to run without Fred Warner? Were they relying on him to get them aligned? Can they have the same amount of checks that they used to have when he was in charge of making the checks? Those are the little things that makes it so hard to kind of fill in the shoes of somebody like Fred Warner.
So your last 2 seasons in the NFL, you had a couple of teammates who are now doing some good things with the 49ers, kind of pressed into service with Mac Jones, came here to be the backup and probably be starting his 5th game on Sunday night. And then Kendrick Bourne, who didn't have a team week 1. Just give me your thoughts on how Mac has played in his first season with the 49ers, and then Kendrick Bourne at age 30, putting together his 2 best games in the NFL back to back.
Yeah, I think it's so cool to see, because Kendrick Bourne's best year as a pro was Mac Jones' rookie year coming to New England and free agency. And I think about Mac, and I know there's no controversy in San Francisco and all that with the quarterback position. But I think about him as a rookie. He comes into a locker room where Cam Newton's the starting quarterback. And I can remember the energy and aura that he had was starting quarterback aura. And I remember he told my brother while they were training in the offseason, I know why this team drafted me, and I have a ton of respect for Cam, but I came here to be the guy. And I think about him now in San Francisco. He's a veteran. He's journeyed, from New England to Jacksonville to now San Fran. He knows it's Brock Purdy's team, but he knows when he gets the chance, it's his team. He's not going in there saying, I got to just, do these small things. He's going there as, I'm the guy. All these guys around me, all the guys on the team, they're counting on me to deliver. He's not just trying to go and survive. He wants to deliver. He wants to go out there and play. And I think Kyle Shanahan's done an awesome job of putting him in places where he's most comfortable. Those play action passes where he can throw those kind of end cuts or bang those skinny posts right behind the linebackers. You see some of those throws. He's found Kendrick Bourne, and it looks so good. And I think the same thing for Kendrick. He got to New England. You could see the growth of him and not only on the field, but as a person, him personally, how far he's come. So I think him going back to San Francisco, I think he took on as a challenge of the guy was, when I first got here, was a young guy trying to find his way. Now I'm this veteran that's married and I have kids and I'm doing all these things. I want to show everybody, no matter my age, no matter where I'm at on the depth chart, when I get the opportunity, I'm going to go produce and perform. And as a former teammate, it's been really cool to watch those guys on film and see them and see what they're doing.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Like Mac, after Mac had a few good games and asked about, does it feel like it's your team? He was very deferential to Brock Purdy. He's like, no, I'm here to be the backup. That's my job. But the future for Mac, 49ers did sign him to a 2-year contract, so they have him under contract for
That was
next
really
year.
smart.
Yeah, it turns out, yeah, very smart. Do you think that? I mean, maybe you're a little bit biased because you know him so well, but do you think that he will be a full-time starting quarterback in the NFL once again at
I
some
do.
point?
I do. And I think a lot of it, I feel very fortunate being on set with Jason Garrett all the time. And he's a guy who played quarterback in the NFL, but he also coached the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys for 9 years. And he always talks about it's the one position where we never really talk about development. We don't talk about guys developing and how it takes time. Like we'll talk about other positions where guys might play special teams for a few years or play in a sub package on defense. And then in 3 years, they turn out to be this phenomenal starter and no one has a problem with that. He said quarterbacks, if it doesn't work out, we're just like, well, that guy's done. And I look at, I think Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. You look at these different guys who have now, Geno Smith, who have turned into starting quarterbacks. And I think Mac understood that. I think that's a part of why he went to San Francisco. What can I learn from Kyle Shanahan? And I think for a lot of these guys, it's hard. Baker Mayfield drafted to Cleveland, Sam Darnold to the Jets, Mac Jones to the Patriots. These are franchises with these crazy fan bases and like these organizations that want so much. And when it doesn't work out, they're just done with you. And I think for guys building their confidence up and learning how to play football in the NFL from different coaches, you find your style and you find what works. And I think Mac is doing it. I think he went to Jacksonville. He saw something that was different. And I don't know exactly how he felt. I never talked to him about it. But I think now he gets to San Francisco, and I think he's like, man, this reminds me a little bit of my rookie year, being with Josh McDaniels and doing certain things that make sense to me. Now I'm even better. I understand even more, and I think it's showing up on the field.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm overstating this, but this game kind of feels like a fork in the road kind of game for the 49ers. Their first game without Fred Warner. Where's this season going to go? Man, there's a huge difference, I think, between 5-2 and 4-3. So am I overstating it? Is this kind of this is what we're going to see from the 49ers? Is this as big a game as I kind of think it is?
I think it's big in terms of of like you just said, keeping up pace with everybody else in the division. But I think it's big for the morale of the team. You got this team in Atlanta coming off a game where Monday night, they play out of their minds. They just handle Buffalo. And I think you could tell watching the game. But then when you go back and watch the film, you're like, man, like Atlanta really played well. And now you're playing them coming off a game where you lost another starter, the heartbeat of your team. Hopefully you get George Kittle back, which I think would be huge just for a spark. You talk about leadership. You talk about an energy guy like George Kittle, I think can bring that to the team. But I think it just reassures you that, hey, guys, like we're still good. Like it sucks to lose Fred, but like let's take a breath. Let's go out there. We can still go play football and win games. And I think beating a team like Atlanta, which after you win in this league, you win on a Monday night where everybody's watching, all of a sudden Atlanta's a team. They can come out of the NFC. Like they're going to compete with Tampa. And I think for the 49ers, you say, okay, we just lost to a Tampa team. Now, if we can come out here and beat Atlanta, who's supposed to be pretty good and can compete with them, we feel better going forward. And we feel like our season is still up to us to decide. And then hopefully Ricky Pearsall comes back. Juwan Jennings gets even more healthy. Like as those things start happening, I think it just continues to lift your football team. So this definitely feels like that first big step to get on that path.
Yeah, and then George Kittle as well. I mean, just think about what he could bring not only to the passing game, but also to the running game, get that thing going, right?
Yep, and I think that'll be huge. I think especially George Kittle in the run game, and then George Kittle being somebody else that can take something off Christian McCaffrey. Like, I love what Christian McCaffrey's doing right now, but I think everybody in San Francisco, everybody in the Bay Area is like, how long can we keep this up before we lose Christian McCaffrey because of the amount of usage he's having? I just think it scares you a little bit. I think getting Kittle back and getting these other guys can help spread the ball around. So they're not so reliant on, okay, we're going to need Christian McCaffrey to have 60 yards receiving and at least 70 yards rushing and, having 25 to 30 to like it starts to wear a guy down. So I'm sure they're hoping we get Kittle back and we get different guys back so you can move away from just relying on one guy.
Yeah. All right, Devin. Well, hopefully we have a good one here Sunday night at Levi's Stadium. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it and really enjoyed hearing your insights on this game and the 49ers.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.